Good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody. How we doing? Oh, the music just died right there. Good morning, Will. How we doing?
I'm doing all right. The music didn't die. I turned it off so that I could get the YouTube up and going. There are rules on YouTube.
Are there rules on YouTube?
Yeah, I think I got to
get can't play?
Well, my understanding is I got to get the music down so then it can be monetized.
Ah, yes, because they like blank out X amount of seconds or a minute if you have it going, right?
Yeah, so I will err on the side of get the music off quick so that we can be on the YouTube and the Twitch and make more money for the company because I'm a company man.
Ah, you are.
That's right.
Okay.
I live and breathe Odyssey blue and orange.
Do you? Do you buy any hats or shirts with your Odyssey bucks? Is that still
What
a
is
thing?
an Odyssey buck?
Oh, you haven't heard about this?
No.
About a year ago, I want to say it was about a year ago, the company decided that we were going to reward compliments. So people that worked in different branches all throughout Odyssey in America at a station, somebody could write in, Will Ortner does an exceptional job, and I'd like to recognize his work ethic. And the company would give you 20 or 30 Odyssey dollars. Now, what are Odyssey dollars?
Shroot bucks?
It sounds, when you talk about it out loud, it sounds very much like Shroot bucks. We ended up having a website where you could go and it'd be like all of these things you could buy, and it'd be like 80 Odyssey dollars, 120 Odyssey dollars. And we had one last year from one of our sales reps. He did it mainly as a joke because we thought it was hilarious that the company was doing this. And we couldn't even buy an Odyssey hat with it. We got 30 Odyssey dollars, and we went on the website and jokingly we're going to buy a hat, and it was 50 Odyssey dollars. We couldn't even buy a hat.
It's a ripoff. That's inflation.
Yeah, we got a compliment, and it got us nothing at all.
Got you nothing. So, like, can I compliment you, and then that gets you bucks? And as a fill-in, do my bucks mean less than, say, if, like, one of our head suits decided to compliment you?
Well, you can't just give me a compliment. You actually had to, like, go to a website and fill out this form.
Oh, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm not filling out a form. That's stupid.
Hey, breaking news. I'd be willing to venture and bet that nobody is getting Odyssey dollars anymore.
I want to know if this policy is still going. Like, do I have to go to our special Odyssey workers website? Is that how that works?
I think that's what they would tell you to do, but I don't think anybody actually does it. Unfortunately. Also, we need real dollars right now. Odyssey, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, there's a drop in here somewhere, but I'm not looking for it. It's in there somewhere. And look, I love Swag, but his page is a little convoluted.
We could talk for...
It's a little convoluted.
I could honestly do an entire show on how he does the drops page and how it makes no sense.
But it makes sense to him, and everyone does it different.
No, but see, here's where I'll push back. It doesn't, because he largely doesn't touch the drops. So he does it, and then he doesn't use it, and then other people come in to use it, and it's just chaos.
But he doesn't like the drops. He's not a drops guy.
Which is odd, because he started producing with Primetime.
Yeah, but that was more of a Lynch thing. Like, Lynch brought in the drops, and then I think Rob just gets bored.
No. That's an Isaac Ropp production that Jason Swigard once upon a time had to navigate and produce. And he left that show, and he hates drops. Like, of all the shows to walk away from, and your takeaway is no drops, I don't think that's the radio show. Now, Lynch did come in and do an exceptional job stepping up in that moment. Well, actually, it was Swag, Dusty, then Lynch. So Dusty and Mike filled in seemingly perfect, hit the drops page. Swag just hates drops. Not a drops guy.
See, I always thought that was a Lynch thing, because I've been listening forever, dude. I remember... I'd listen to you guys after I'd go work out on the late night show.
Oh, the nighttime show.
I'd go lift at 8. It was like 8 to 10 at the 24-hour fitness because I was confident.
Yes.
That the gains were best handled then.
Yeah.
Although now I'm a Crunch Fitness guy. I prefer them.
There you go.
But I would listen to you guys on the way back. So I've been listening since way, way back in the day. Like, I remember when it was just those three yahoos doing shows here.
Yeah. We had a stripper in studio topless reading a night, 'twas the night before Christmas poem.
Yeah, I learned about that.
And we weren't streaming. So, like, in retrospect, why did we have her get topless?
What was the point?
I mean, I'm not going to complain at what I saw. She wanted to do it. She's like, what if I took my top off? We're
A
like,
plus material.
Okay. Kind of feel like Howard Stern in that moment, you know? I was 25. What do you want from me?
What are you going to do? Be like, no, keep it on.
There's more to that story, not involving me, but there's more to that story that ended up being a pretty kick-ass story. But yeah, I wasn't going to be like, excuse me. It was her profession. She wanted to be a professional at that point.
Hey, you know what? Far be it from me to tell someone else how to do their job.
Hey, she loved what she did, and love is love. Did you have a nice little Valentine's Day there, Will?
I did. I went to my favorite love, the Crunch Fitness.
Yeah.
Went to the gym.
Okay.
You know, had a little cardio day.
All right.
And then I worked a high school basketball game. I had to do some announcing.
Oh, you were announcing.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me you reffed.
No, I'm not putting on the pants running around. I don't need to get yelled at by parents and then me yell back at them.
Yeah.
I'll announce it. I'll do my best, now. Bum, 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 bum.
The starting lineup. What school did you do announcing for?
I always go back to the alma mater. They always call me. I've got some friends over there in high places.
Yeah.
And they call me in and, pay me a little bit, and then I have a good time.
I went to a Park Rose women's basketball game. My buddy's coaching their varsity, and so we went and just supported and watched the team.
Nice.
They had a PA person, and he was very interesting. He did like the coming into the game, and then he like just throughout the entire game. All right, now let's get loud. Oh, that's only 2 fouls. Oh, there seems to be more fouls on us than them. Like out loud. We were like, I don't know if you should be saying that, man. But
yeah, no, everything is positive when Will's announcing. It is here is the sheet I have to read. Here are the starters. You made a basket. I don't say that there are fouls. I announce at the end of each quarter, hey, this is the score. If someone's checking in, here is your name that I will butcher.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
And that's about it.
Okay.
Everything is positive.
I've actually wanted to ref, but I can't bring myself to do it because I've also been in the stands and I've heard what parents are like now.
Oh, yeah. No, they were yelling at me, an announcer.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
For saying a name wrong? Or
no,
what?
they thought I announced and ran the clock. That's 2 jobs.
Wow.
Will only does 1.
Yeah, the guy doing the PA ain't running the clock.
Yeah,
That's
no.
somebody yell at somebody else. What are we doing?
Well, and also, like, look, you can yell at me all you want, and then I stand up, and then no one yells at me.
I was at my nephew's basketball game a couple weeks ago, and his coach ended up getting a technical foul in the game.
Love it.
At like maybe the worst time. I think they were down like 2 or 3, and then he obviously said the thing. I heard what he said. And the ref had heard it from him all game and turns around and is like, yo, no. Tease him up. I'm just looking at it and I'm like, I don't think I could be a ref. If somebody said to me what that guy just said, I would want to toss it. I wouldn't even give him 1 tee. I'd double tee him and be like, get the hell out of here, dude.
Get out of here.
Shut up.
Right.
Shut your trap.
Right. Well, and we had some issues that was the worst part in this game is fans were getting on the refs. It was a 30-point game. And I get it. Like, you're bummed out. It's your daughter.
No, I don't get it.
Your players.
You're down 30. What are you complaining about?
Right, but if it's a senior, it's their last game. Right. It's your granddaughter. I get it. I get that you're upset. You're sad. It's over. But it's a 30-point game.
Yeah.
Who cares if it was a 3-pointer or not? So what? You lost by 30 or you lost by 29? It'll be okay.
Foot was on the line. No, it wasn't. It was behind the line. No, foot was on the line. What a ridiculous thing to argue about down that many points.
Right. Also, there are plenty of good basketball players. You're not seeing them for the Seattle Storm anytime soon.
No, well, that's the other part is how many parents don't realize their kids aren't professionals or not going to be professional.
Not going to be. There might be 1 or 2 that are playing in college, and good for you.
Sure.
D2 college is great. Shouts out Siwoo. But no one's going to the WNBA here.
Well, it's just funny how everybody's kid is going to be a college or pro athlete. And then you're like, I mean, they're good, but like so you know what's funny? Here's a quick story. Just as an example. How good are pro athletes, right? Not that anybody out there needs to hear. They already know. But what's funny is I just heard a story from CJ Stroud, the starting Texans quarterback.
Yeah.
He dropped 40 points when he played against Jaime Jaquez in high school.
Yes, I heard this
I think
story.
he was 2 years older than Jaquez, or he's a year older than Jaquez, or they're the same age. I can't remember.
Right.
But they played against each other, and they had highlights, and he's just draining threes. That's an NFL quarterback who also had an ability to drop 40 points on a current NBA player.
Right. In his sport.
Your kid's not doing that.
No, I get my eyes open when I go to the gym with the old guy, Sook. I'll be in there and I'm strong.
You go to the gym with Sook?
We go to the same gym. He shows up sometimes.
Does he show up or do you show up? Because I've heard him talk about how he thinks you want to wear skin.
He likes to make this into a whole, like, Will wants to be me. It's really he wants to relive his life through me.
Okay.
It's very clear that, like, he wants to have me do the things that he wishes he had done when he was in his 20s.
And this is at the gym. What do you do at the gym that he wishes he would have done?
Oh, not hurt.
Well, that's, yeah.
Be able to get up and down without my knees cracking.
Yeah. Or your shoulder being able to go higher than like past your ear, your arm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it turns into look at how much stronger I am than you. But that's the eye-opening thing. Like, I played in college. I was a pretty decent player. Wasn't going to play professionally in any real league that anyone cared about.
Yeah.
I'll go in there. I'm still pretty strong. I can put 3 plates on the bench and get a couple reps in. I can still put...
What is that, 315, right?
Yeah,
3 plates?
315. I can still get 500 and some odd pounds on the bar and deadlift it. It's no problem.
Yeah.
And then Sook will look at it and then just go, watch this. And whatever I'm doing, he'll double it.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
You're a very big guy.
And I'm young. I'm 26.
I know. You're a big dude. But then I see Sukanik, and I'm like,
It's different.
It's
different.
Like, your arms are pretty big. Suk's are twice the size of those.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's the guy who openly talks about how damn near didn't have an NFL career. He was in it for a cup of coffee, had some great stories and memories, and obviously it's changed his life. And that guy couldn't quite get to the level he wanted to. It's like, oh, yeah, there's a big difference here.
Yeah. That dude who, like, can barely get up and down to sit in the chair. That dude who every day it looks like he is in pain constantly.
I think he is. That's why he's always pushing THC gummies and whatnot.
He's like, I think that has other effects for him as well. There's a little bit of a chill out there. But that's what I'm saying. That's the difference. I am a pretty good athlete. I am still pretty strong. I work out every day.
Yeah.
It is something that is important to me. It's something that I love doing. And he dominates me. So imagine what a true 1% of 1% athlete can do.
Yep.
I feel like most of them can show up and just be the best player in whatever sport they want to choose. If CJ Stroud decides to play pickleball tomorrow, he will be the #1 pickleball player, and it won't be close.
He might not start there, but I wouldn't be shocked if he worked his way into the top 15 conversation. Like, oh, yeah, this guy has elite hand-eye coordination, and oh, by the way, physically just one of the most gifted athletes to ever exist.
Right. He's fat, and it's all natural, probably. Like, obviously he works, but naturally he's going to walk into the building and be the best.
Funny story, real quick, and then we'll get the show going. Years ago, when we were 10 to noon, me and Dirt, and Swag was our producer.
Yeah.
We were doing a thing out at Crunch, and Swag, for whatever reason, swore he could squat 315 pounds. Why? I don't know.
Because people don't realize how heavy it is.
What's interesting is he's literally a guy who doesn't lift weights. He only runs or walks. He's not a weightlifter at all. In fact, when you see his arms, you're almost surprised of how small they are. And like me and Dirt were like, do you know how you can't do that? Do you know how much that is? And me and Swag aren't really that different in size. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, I can't squat 315. I don't really do a ton of legs like that. But at that point, I'm like, dude, I can't do it. I don't think you could do it. And he puts out a bet. When we go to Crunch, we put 145 on each side.
I bet he couldn't even do that.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it. 145 on each side, and he couldn't do it.
Because people don't realize how heavy it is.
But it was hyped up as this big bet. And it took all of 2 minutes for him to be like, nah, can't do it. We're like, yeah, no S, Sherlock. What are you talking about?
Because every gym bro on Instagram or on Twitter, they can all do 315. So then everyone assumes, 315, it can't be that heavy. I saw the 5'9" rip dude do it. Why can't I do it? It's heavy. It's a lot of weight. Now, can some people who lift and have been lifting for a long time do it? Yeah, totally. But if you haven't lifted before and you think you're going to throw 3 plates on there in any lift and just go out there and dominate it, it's not going to happen. It just won't.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the ego lift. Everyone's like, I can do this. Hey, look, I get it. Sometimes, I throw way more weight on there than I should. Like, watch me curl this bar. And then it feels like my arm's going to rip out of my socket.
Exactly. Most people don't realize it until they start doing it. Oh, this was not a good idea. Shocking. Breaking news.
There's nothing worse than being at the bottom of that squat and going, oh man, I'm not getting up.
We're not going up here. I need to take that side off.
Like, make sure the pretty girl leaves. Make sure the pretty girl leaves. Have her walk away.
We have a lot to get to today. We got 2 guests. Reagan Beers is a star forward for Oregon State women's basketball. They're number 11 in the nation. I'm going to their game on Friday, and Reagan's having a great year, so she's going to hop on at 8:30 today. And then at 8, Ken Barkley joins us. You better you bet. Our BetQL and Odyssey sports gambling expert. He's going to join us. We'll recap the Super Bowl with him and get to some other things in sports. But let's start here. Damn it happened again. And man, was he hammered. All of that's next. Stern Sprague, good to be with you on this Thursday on The Fan. Sports Leader 1080 The Fan. We'll get to some audio, and we got a lot to get into. We will start. So yesterday I went and had a Valentine's Day lunch with my wife. I coach basketball, so we have practice at night. We're not really much a Valentine's Day couple anyway, so like the whole dinner and getting dressed up, like that's never really been our thing. And so she goes, let's go get some lunch. I'm like, great. So we go up the road, we get a lunch. We're leaving, and I turn the car on. And, I have it on 1080 all the time, and Danny and Dusty are on. It's like 12:42 or whatever. And I'm listening to Dusty, and I'm like, I catch his tone, and I'm like, why does he sound like that? So I turn the volume up. And then he tells me, mass shooting at Chiefs Super Bowl parade. And I'm just like, oh, fantastic. Another mass shooting. Great. Get to talk about that. Can't wait. Like one of the happiest moments you can have as a fan, and it gets ruined by senseless idiots. And it cost a life, and it's left several children with gunshot wounds. And, like instead of the Super Bowl parade, and we have Kelsey audio from it before everything went down, the Chiefs were done. It was basically over at this point when it happened. I don't know what videos everybody has seen. I've seen 3 or 4 videos. I watched people take down the people and, responsible. And that was nice that they stopped it and they got the people responsible for it. And I saw another video from super far out across the street, and everybody looks like little ants, and you can hear it, and then it just happens. You see everybody scatter, and, it's really sad stuff, Will, that we have to just continue to live through and be normalized to, and can't have any adult conversations about anything because everybody gets offended and butthurt. And I don't know, man. It was pretty eye-opening for me because my kids were both in elementary school a year ago. I have one now in middle school. It's pretty eye-opening when the Uvalde thing happens in Texas and one of your kids is getting panic attacks because they don't do earthquake drills like I did. They don't do 2 fire drills a year where, hey, line up. All right, now we walk out to the blacktop.
Right.
They get to do active shooter drills. Hey, if somebody comes in here with a gun that we refuse to care about at all, you guys need to do this, and we're going to lock our doors, and we need to be quiet. That's the thing about mass shootings that nobody wants to talk about when they yell at each other. You're counting bodies. I'm counting trauma. So it's not just the victims of the shooting. It's the people connected to the people of the shooting. It's the people who survived the shooting. And it's the people who have to go through drills and procedures around the idea of a shooting. And yet that's the area nobody wants to talk. Well, it was only 2. They stopped the shooter. First of all, 2's too many. So thank you for your idiotic point. Second of all, how does that impact the next 10 people around them? How does it impact their family and their friends and their family and their friends? And that's the thing nobody wants to talk about, Will, is it ain't just body count, which is ridiculous in itself that that's somehow some pro argument. It's not addressing and not being adults. That's what this country's become. We are all children. Nobody wants to be an adult and stand up and do the obvious thing. And it turns into something like this happens. And what happens? Everybody gets on TV. They say the same thing. And then 2 days later, we go back to the regular. It's a cycle that continues to repeat itself. I keep seeing these blogs. Marcus Spears with a great point on NFL Live. Marcus Spears had a great point. Marcus Spears, write it down. You'll probably have to give it another 6 months, another 4 months, another 2 weeks, whatever it's going to be, because it continues to happen.
Right. And I had an eye-opening experience one time when I was subbing. So at one of the schools that I sub at, you're in a portable. And I hate that they have you lock the door at the end, or at the start and the end of every class. So you're supposed to lock the door and then unlock it at the end, and then you stand by the door so all the kids can come in, and then you lock it back up right away. And I hate that because I just want to sit at my desk, or maybe I want to go get a drink, or I want to go move around and I want to do stuff.
But you and I grew up where the door was open. The hallway's just the hallway.
There were no fences. There was nothing like that. And then I had a kid come into class and they were like, why isn't the door locked? And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm here. Like, you're good. I'm in the classroom. I'm not worried about you breaking into anything. My eyes, I can see you. I have video cameras. We'll be okay. And they said, well, no, it's supposed to be locked because what if a bad guy tries to get in here right now? And it was in that moment when I realized this isn't supposed to be locked because it's a stupid rule. This isn't supposed to be a locked door because they don't want kids to come in and steal stuff or take stuff. It's because they don't want someone to break in and want to harm other students. And that kind of blew my mind for a little bit, because I don't think that if you don't have a child or you're not working in a school or have family members that work in a school, you're not going to think about how it affects different school districts. To my knowledge, the 2 school districts that I work at, there's never been an active shooter. Yet, when you talk to those students, it's one of the first things on their mind. They don't think about the earthquake drill. They don't think about the fire drill. They don't think about a tornado drill, which has had to happen. It happened to me when I was in school. Mm-hmm. They think about the active shooter drill and how to get out of the classroom and how to get out of the school and how to get to safety. I remember when guys still brought their shotguns to school to go hunt after. Like, that was a part. I remember when that rule changed. Sandy Hook happened when I was in high school. So I remember when guys got upset of, what do you mean I can't bring my hunting gun to school? I have to go out and hunt right after class ends.
See, to me, even before Sandy Hook, right, that's a wild thing that was allowed to happen at your school. Like, to me, you can be responsible guy all you want. Like, the fact that anybody, student, adult, whatever, that's allowed, that's mind-blowing to me.
I remember thinking it was stupid that my buddy couldn't have shotgun shells in his car. He didn't have the gun. He had shotgun shells because he had gone hunting that weekend, forgot about them. They were in his car. The security guard walked by, saw them, and he got called in. And I remember, because I was a dumb 14, 15-year-old, and being like, who cares? Nothing can happen if you just have the bullets. That's not even going to scare anybody. And now, obviously, as I've moved on and I've become at least a little bit smarter, I can't believe that was even allowed in the first place.
It is remarkable how the people chosen to lead are the most spineless people who are just bought and paid for puppets. I was 25 when I had my first kid. I was, a lot of people that's normal for them that age. I've said it before. I was immature. I was not fully aware of a lot of adult things. And I realized it in the moment, right? You continue to grow. But I was 25 when I had my first kid. And she's 1. So I'm 26. I just turned 26. I think Sandy Hook was, I think it was like December 6th or 7th or something. So I had just turned 26. And I'm at my mother-in-law's house that day. And I was playing with my kid, and the news pops up, and I'm seeing this happen, and I'm like floored. I had no idea how to process what was going on, the information. It was like overwhelming. And then I watched these people get on TV and be like, no, it's not the time to talk about anything. And then a month goes by, and there's still no talk. And then 8 months go by, and still no talk. And now it's 2024, and here we are. And so, it's I heard Dusty say that yesterday. And the tone he had was right. I just there's really nothing to say at this point. It's pretty fairly obvious, but we can sometimes show how incredibly dumb we are too. And so it's unfortunate that somebody lost their life, and it's really unfortunate that all these kids had to go through that experience, and that all these people around that moment had to experience it too. And a day that should have been fun, celebrating one of the greatest football players of all time, it ends that way. And welcome to America in 2024. We'll get to some audio. We get to some other things as well. Dirt and Sprague, we're back with more. But first, Will with the sports update.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain.
We have two guests today. A lot of good thoughts on the Vancouver Ford text line. Just going through some of this, and we'll move on from it. I'm disgusted by it, and I'm just sick and damn tired of having to talk about it and seeing it and thinking about it. And I mean, I can only speak for myself. I know when I go to a lot of public events, like big outings, it absolutely hits my mind at least once or twice. I'm definitely looking around going, where would I go? And that just like that in itself, I think is a really pathetic thing about living in society, is the fact that that even goes through my head. We'll get to something in college football coming up. Before the unfortunate tragedy did happen, Travis Kelce took the stage and decided to sing. Now, I don't know about you, Will. I might be wrong here. I am not going to be naive. Fully aware that championship parades have long been filled with athletes or coaches getting sauced up. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's not a shock. It's not some new thing that just started. But I will say, back in my day, I feel like I used to watch these parade recaps when I was a lot younger, and it'd be like Jordan or Pippen or Steve Kerr or Mark Madsen doing the awkward, goofy white guy dance or whatever. And I would watch these parades, and you'd see, they'd say that we're going to win next year. We're going to win it again. Oh yeah, we're just getting started. And I feel like the last couple years, and maybe I'm wrong here, it feels like the people talking to the crowd are the most sauced up. Now,
it's the most famous people.
Yeah, but I also saw Willie Gay lying on the street with a bottle of Hennessy shirtless yesterday.
That was awesome. He was doing the NBA Youngboy.
I think it's funny. And then also I'm like, the people who are actually talking to the thousands of people in attendance, it's kind of weird and awkward if those people are the most sauced up. And I'm going to play this clip. Travis Kelce was having to be held up. He basically was looking like Weekend at Bernie's a couple times, where he almost fell back because he was so drunk. And yet they gave him the microphone, and this is what he did.
If you know this song, sing along. Blame it all on my roots. I showed up in boots and ruined the Niners affair. The last one to know. We were the last one to show. We were the last ones they thought they'd see there. And I saw the surprise, that fear in their eyes. They took that glass of champagne. Pat took that glass of champagne, I promise you. And I toasted you.
Oh my God.
Honey, we through what I never. What? I got friends in low places. Down in low places that lead the way. And we'll be again. Oh, I got friends.
Jeez, man.
Been there.
You've been there in front of like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 people, so blackout drunk that you can't even. I don't even know what he said half of the time.
No, but I'd be lying if I said I haven't been in that position and then tried
Singing
to
low places drunk.
Singing low places drunk with the boys on an Ellensburg night, or trying to flirt with some pretty girl and thinking that I'm killing it, and then wake up in the next morning going, I did not kill that.
In the moment, it feels like everything's coming out crystal clear, and then you see the video and you're like, oh man,
that was bad.
I wasn't even talking. I was just making sounds with my voice.
He accidentally went into Trump there too. Patrick took that away.
This got so bad that Mahomes was like, I'm taking the microphone from him.
That is the one.
Because Mahomes was drunk too, but
Right.
Mahomes was like, oh my God, like this guy's way more drunk than I am.
See, I disagree. I think they're the same level of drunk. Travis is the guy who has to, everyone shut up in the party. Everyone shut up. I love you, and I love you, and I love you.
Yeah, he did that to Nick Wright.
And Mahomes is like, I'm hammered. I'm going to do my best to make sure no one knows I'm hammered.
Bring back the Mark Madsons. Where's the awkward white guy dance? I need more of that in my life.
Awkward white guy singing.
I don't know how I'd feel. Like, as a Chiefs fan, I'm probably super excited. My team's won the title again. I've got this quarterback forever. And I'm standing there listening to this blackout drunk idiot not even be able to say words. I'm like, okay, this is kind of awkward. Can you pass that mic to Andy Reid, please? Andy Reid might be the guy to be talking right now. Not Travis Kelce.
What if Andy Reid was hammered drunk and he got up there and he just started letting it fly?
Again, I'm not trying to be like this has never happened guy at all, like fun police guy, but it was a little awkward to watch that. He couldn't even barely stand on his own, and they had to take the microphone from him because he didn't know what he was saying at that point. He had lost what was happening, and I'm sure most of them were pretty drunk. They were having a good time. I saw him running down the street, high-fiving the fans. Like, that's just what the championship parade is, but Travis Kelce grabbing the mic at the most blacked out drunk stage of his day gets a little weird, a little awkward.
Not a good move there. Look, sometimes you need the get back guy, and the get back guy was there. The real issue is that Taylor Swift wasn't there. If Taylor Swift was there, he would not have been that drunk. You don't get that drunk when your girl's there, especially if you're not married to her or engaged, because she can walk at any point. You don't get that drunk in front of your girl. You get that drunk when your girl's gone and you're like, boys weekend, let's ride.
The funny thing is you couldn't see it because obviously we're a radio station, but when he's singing, he's looking at his phone. He clearly wrote a version of Friends in Low Places that included the Niners and stuff. And then eventually he stops looking at his phone because I don't think he's even capable of reading it at that point. I think he wasn't
reading it to begin with.
Well, yeah, but he had it in front of his face at the beginning, and then it goes away, and you're like, oh, man, this guy is gone. He is probably still sleeping. Gonna have to sleep that one off for a couple days. Coming up next, this was said on the show yesterday, and I think it highlights just how sad it is in this sport. That's next. Dirt and Sprague on The Fan.
That was super.
In the shotgun,
be a little more chill, a little more calm, a little funnier. We will get into a lot. There was a comment on Caleb Williams I found fascinating that I heard yesterday, and I want to bring that at the top of the hour. We have two guests today, Ken Barkley at 8 of You Better You Bet, and Reagan Beers, forward for Oregon State women's basketball. They got a big 2 games this week and trying to get revenge against UCLA and USC. And I'll be at the Friday game against UCLA. Juju Watkins, the star freshman of USC, is going to be in town taking on in the weekend. So I'm excited for the 2 games. Reagan Beers coming up at 8:30. I had Adam Rittenberg on the show yesterday of ESPN, and he talked to Tony Petitti yesterday. But I asked him about just the coaching situations, and I said, who's more likely to stay and be at the school longer, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama or Jedd Fisch at Washington? And Adam Rittenberg, if I could find the cut here.
It is Will Fisch stay at UW long term.
Okay, here it is. This is the cut. I asked Adam Rittenberg who will be at the school longer, Kalen DeBoer at Bama or Jedd Fisch at UW.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, history would say Kalen DeBoer. Jedd has been a job hopper, or maybe by necessity has moved around a heck of a lot in his career as an assistant. And then now, with his first move coming just 3 years at Arizona, where he did a great job in the end, but then moved to Washington. Again, I think Kalen's in it for the long haul if they'll have him. It's obviously going to be a very difficult situation to replace Nick Saban. The expectations are off the charts even right away. And, if they miss the 14 playoff a couple of times, then he could be in trouble. But, I think that's a little bit more of a destination job for Kalen DeBoer than Washington is for Jedd Fisch. Now, maybe Jedd will surprise us, and that'll be a place he stays for, 7, 8, 10 years. But his history and track record says that he'll be moving on relatively soon. And, one job that people are already talking about, and I don't think it would happen this quick, is Florida. That's where Jedd Fisch is from, that's where he went to college, has roots in that state, worked there as an NFL assistant. I think he was at Miami at one point. So, there's a good chance that job comes open in the next couple of years. What does Jedd Fisch do at that point?
I was wondering yesterday when he said that, and I wanted to talk about it today of like, if you're a UW fan, you're a Husky fan, and Kalen DeBoer just left you after getting to a title game and, feeling like for a moment they might win the national championship. And then he goes to Alabama. You go get a guy that almost everybody, I think, outside of the UW sphere would say, moves around a lot guy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't at Arizona for very long. Once he established it, got it going, finally gets to, hey, this is going to be the year, he bounces to Seattle and goes to a Big Ten team. And to Adam Rittenberg's point, if that Florida situation doesn't improve, Jedd Fisch went to Florida. And I'm not saying he's going to be gone in a year, but this has always been kind of part of my point. College football is growing, and at the same time feels like it's broken more now than it's ever been, partially because of this. Like, how invested should fans get with their head coach how many schools are untouchable? Like, how many schools have a coach and they don't have to worry about that coach leaving? There's only a handful of them. And even those, it's like, does the coach want to coach in the NFL? If so, even that school won't do him justice. I just wonder how invested Husky fan is going to be on Jedd Fisch. It's not that they're not going to root for him. It's not that they're not going to say, let's be good next year. In the back of your mind, in the deep recesses, aren't you kind of asking yourself, when's this dude leaving us? Because he has no history of being loyal and staying at any one place for longer than a few seasons.
Right. But I always think that was kind of the case whenever you look at college football. Now, it might not be as in your face or it might not be as blatant, right? But, it's always been, hey, how can you get to the next spot? How can you get to the next spot? How can you get to the next spot? Because there truly are only a few universities and programs that can truly win a title. There are only a few spots where you can go in and say, this is an actual school where we actually have a belief and we can get the dudes to go out and win a title. Everything else is a special season. And the thing for UW that UW fans have to remember, you had, 26 seniors this year?
They have as many at the combine, the NFL combine, as any other school.
It's like Michigan's the only one that beats them.
Yeah.
Michigan's the only one that beats them, right? you are a great school at UW, but I don't feel like with the NIL backing that you have, that you truly have a chance at being a national title contender.
But see, let me interrupt that.
Right.
I kind of agree with your overall point on that. There's only so many schools that are going to win this. I do think NIL and portal stuff has opened it up to more teams, but like they were just in the title game. I saw it with my eyes.
Right.
So they can do it. They just didn't win that game, and I don't know if they'll get back, but they can get there.
Right. But let's look at that team that got there.
Mm-hmm.
You had Michael Penix, who, if he doesn't get hurt, might be the Heisman Trophy candidate. You had 3 NFL wide receivers, one that's going to be a top 10 pick, 2 other guys that, if McMillan doesn't get hurt, he might be a first-round pick as well. And then Polk, he's going to be a day 2, worst-case scenario, early day 3 guy. You have the best offensive line in all of college football. You won the award, right? You had a good running back who was banged up for most of the year, but when that dude was healthy, we saw what he could do. Then on the defensive side of the football, you had a great defensive line with 2 premier pass rushing defensive and outside linebacker types in Trice and in ZTF. And then you had a great secondary that was led by one of the best cover corners in college football, in Muhammad, right?
And then you also had Hampton at safety. Like, you had some really good DBs too.
You had maybe the best amalgamation of players that you could have, and you were multiple scores short, right? Now, you could make the argument, well, if Johnson doesn't get hurt, or, if Penix makes a couple throws that he'd been making all year.
Sure.
But when they won games, when they won that Texas game, when they won that first Oregon game, that was because Michael Penix was perfect.
Yeah.
So when Michael Penix wasn't perfect in one moment, in one game, you lost.
Yes.
So you basically have to have everything be perfect to win at UW. Does that mean that you can't? No, it doesn't mean that you can't. But it means that it's much more difficult than, say, if you went to a Florida spot, or to a Georgia spot, or to an Alabama spot. And honestly, I don't even know if Florida is one of those teams. I'm just saying it because they've won recently. But as you look at their success in the NIL era, it's not there. And there are rumors that their NIL program is bankrupt. There isn't money there, at least not to compete with the big name programs.
I have heard Washington's, and you know what? Let's do this, Will. Let's carry this over to the second hour. I'll push the Caleb Williams audio I have to 7:15.
For sure.
I want to carry this over because you're hitting on some things that I think we should continue to dive into, because this is a part of the sport that we all love. We're all passionate about it. Hell, we hear more from people. Well, we don't hear more, but we hear from people, you're talking too much college football. And I'm like, I don't think that's really a thing, but okay.
I feel like it gets the most response.
We tend to have the most passion to either the schools we went to or the schools we were grown up to love and support. I want to talk about this. If you're a UW fan out there, how invested does it feel like Jedd Fisch is in your program? Do you feel like this is a guy that's going to be around? Because Kalen DeBoer probably felt like that, except Jedd Fisch's track record is even more move around than Kalen's was coming into it. So we'll talk about this. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague. It is loaded. A lot to talk about on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, it's Suk. And guys, for those of you with a full head of hair, congratulations. Studies show
Yeah, he gets horny all the time.
Oh, no, dude, I catch it because it's all over my Twitter feed, followed by OnlyFans models putting up their links to their exclusive content.
Of course they are. It always is like, it's hidden. You got to unhide it. And you're like, oh, it's an OnlyFans link. Okay, welcome to Twitter now.
And it's like, oh, shocker. That's all this is. It's gambling and OnlyFans.
We have a pundit who has a pretty good track record saying Caleb Williams, not so fast. We'll get to that coming up at 7:15. We were talking about Jed Fish. I had Adam Rittenberg on yesterday from ESPN, and I just asked him simply who's going to be at their school longer, DeBoer or Fish. And, you know, he's taken DeBoer. If DeBoer is not fired and is allowed to keep coaching, he thinks DeBoer stays. It's Alabama, too, so it's kind of an easy thing to answer. But you mentioned it, and maybe this year is just one of the all-time worst ones. I tend to think this is just kind of what it has been now for some time, and this year it was even worse. During the commercial break, as we talked about how committed Jed Fish is to Washington, well, during the commercial break, a 4-minute span, we had an announcement from Bruce Feldman. Washington State lost another assistant coach to a different program. They lost their offensive line coach. He just left. He's going to Texas Tech. Texas Tech is
not better than WSU, but it is because they're in the Big 12.
Yeah, they're in a conference that, you know, at least for now has as much say, and you could certainly say maybe the Pac-2 will keep that status. But despite that, this is my point. It's like Jake Dicker now has to replace 2 assistants. This thing is never stopping. It just continues to go and grow, and people are moving and coming to your school and then moving again. And like, I have no confidence that Jed Fish will be coaching Washington for longer than 3 seasons. Zero. I'm at 0% confidence that will happen.
Yeah, but I don't blame you. And again, it's because of the things that.
But that's a Big Ten team in Seattle, Washington. That is a talent pipeline. I hear you.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where are the national titles? Where are they since Don James?
I mean, you could do that. You could do that with how many schools that are contenders now, though?
Right.
Oregon doesn't have one. They don't even have a write-in one.
Right, but at least
they're in that status.
But at least what they're doing is they're getting top 10 recruiting classes.
Yeah.
It looks like
top
they are
5.
Right, and it looks like they are building. They have an NIL collective that is willing to shell out money. You have a coach that understands how to recruit. Right now, what UW feels like is Oregon under Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly, when everything was right and he had the quarterback and everything was special, he had great running backs, and he had a defense that was better than average under his tenure. That's when he was able to make a national title, right? When you have those special years, you can accomplish a long run, a big run, a possible national championship run. But if everything isn't perfect, and everything will not be perfect in UW for at least a couple years unless they strike rich.
They need the portal to be really good and then, plug back in, yes.
Then you're not winning a title at UW.
But, okay, so how many schools do you think are winning a title?
I really think that there are about 10. There are 10 right now.
And Washington's not one of those 10.
They're on the outside. They're on like the outskirts. They're probably 11 or 12.
Because Michigan hadn't won a title since 1997.
Right, but again,
and that was a write-in. That wasn't a playoff. Like this was their first title.
Right, but you had everything right. You had one of the best coaches in NFL and in college football.
Yes.
You had the correct quarterback. You had an offensive line that had been the best offensive line the 2 years before.
Yeah.
And this year,
I think you could say they were also the best offensive line last year. I know UW won the award, but you could certainly say Michigan was worthy of it.
Right.
And they lost their guy going into the playoff.
You had 2 great running backs. Mm-hmm. You had wide receivers that were able to do what you asked them to do. One of them, the Roman kid, he is shooting up draft boards after his Senior Bowl performance.
Yep.
So it seems like they didn't even use him necessarily the correct way. Then you look at the defense. That defensive line is absolutely absurd. You are getting pressure on UW, something that hadn't happened in any game this year aside from maybe the first Oregon game. And you were getting pressure from multiple different spots, right? So when you look at that Michigan team, it's almost like everything was perfect again. And that's a team that you have all these numbers where, hey, they're not a top 10 recruiter. They're not a top 10 recruiter. Well, that's because you're looking at the average where they have 2 years where they're 20-ish to 25. All the other years, they're right in that top 10 mold.
Sure.
Something UW has never even sniffed.
I don't look. UW is an outlier in the recruiting aspect of this conversation, but I think the other part of this that we're doing a disservice to it. Just because you don't win the national title doesn't mean you didn't have a really good year. The playoff is expanded to 12 teams. UW on any given year is capable, I think, of being one of those 12. Now,
yeah, I agree.
Does that mean you're going to beat Ohio State or Bama or Georgia or Texas? I mean, I know you just beat Texas, but does that mean you're going to win those games? No. But sometimes it's about what? Matchups.
Right.
And if you strike lucky in the first, you go to the next, you strike, maybe you're lucky in that one. Some things need to go your way. But I think like clearly stating X team can win the title, I don't know if there's more than 5. I really don't. You can say Oregon's recruiting right now at that level. They're doing things that historically have never been done. I like Dan Lanning a lot. Also needs to win the conference. Needs to beat UW, needs to see how they hang with Ohio State on a consistent basis in the Big Ten. Like, there are other things Oregon has to do, too, I think, to elevate themselves to it. If you're at a program that is capable of making the playoff, what are you jumping for? Florida, great resources, hotbed of talent in state.
They're having issues with their NIL.
What have they done since Urban's left?
100%.
Swing and a miss. So it's like it partially is the coach. Coach is a big part of that. But also, just because you've established yourself as something doesn't mean you continue rolling as that. So if Jetfish is going to be longer at UW than 3 years, cool. I'll come on and be like, I had no confidence he was going to do that. That's awesome. I don't like to watch this. I think this is terrible for the sport. I think it's part of the thing that kind of turns some people off from it is, oh, my team's really good. That means I'm probably going to lose my coach.
Right.
That's your reward for having a great season. Oregon State got out of the depths of hell. They had one win. They were a pathetic, rudderless ship.
Right.
And Jonathan Smith comes calling, gets the job, couple years, builds it up, 8 wins, 10 wins, gets them back, and then conference uncertainty, I'm bolting for the Big Ten. And that's your own guy. So I think the sport is great. I'm glad they're expanding it. I also think in a lot of ways, this sport is broken, and it's broken so badly that teams that have great years, I say this and people kind of laugh, but like if I was a Husky fan, I would want to throw them a parade. I don't care that they lost in the title. They won the Fiesta Bowl. They smoked Texas. Well, smoked, but they look good against Texas, and they beat Texas. They used to get rewarded for winning that game. Now you win that game, and it's like secondhand. Nobody wanted to touch the Rose Bowl. We don't care about this one. It's like you're making some of these things that used to matter not matter anymore. I would throw parades for TCU and Washington. I don't care that you lost the title game. You had a phenomenal year.
Right.
But instead, they're rewarded with, well, now you're going to lose your coach.
Right.
Cool. Awesome.
But here's the thing. You would reward those schools because that's a big deal for them. But the teams that would win the national title, it's not a big deal for Georgia. It's not a big deal for Alabama. It's not a big deal for Ohio State because they've earned the right to believe that they should go farther. I honestly think at times Oregon fan has a little bit too much of the supposeds, right? Like we're supposed to be in the Pac-12 championship every single year. We're supposed to win.
The
we're
recruiting pile,
right.
I don't need to defend Duck fan, but the recruiting profile at this point, like yes. I said, I might have said this on Monday. If they're not in the Big Ten title game and they're healthy, there's going to be a real weird conversation because what happened? If they're healthy with that talent and their recruiting profile and they're not in the Big Ten title game, I mean, it's going to be a little awkward for Dan Lanning.
Right. But to come in every year and be like, well, it should be at 12 teams with the Oregon, yeah, you probably should be thinking we should be a playoff team. But to think it should be championship or bust every season, I don't think that they're there yet. But for Georgia, it should totally be that
Who's
way.
in that? Okay, so if you were to label it that way,
right,
it has to be in the championship, which, by the way, 12-team playoff that probably gets to 16 at some point, even for the teams of Georgia, Bama caliber, that's going to become increasingly difficult because, yes, they will out-talent every team they face, but we see weird stuff happen all the time in football, and it's not going to shock anybody if they lose their second playoff game. What are the teams that you say that's the expectation?
I think it's Georgia, and I think that's completely earned.
Yep.
I think Alabama is going to feel that way, at least for the first couple of years of DeBoer.
Okay.
Although with their NIL and how much they're raising, it wouldn't shock me if they kind of take a step back, right?
Well, I think it's just a natural transition from the all-time great to a really good coach, but he has to kind of put his culture into it and his mix of it. I don't know if it'll take longer than a year.
I think that would have happened with Saban anyways.
What?
That they would have taken a step back. They don't have the money that some of the other bigwigs do.
Alabama?
No, they don't. They have a lot of money. They don't have the same amount that Georgia has, right? And with Alabama,
I have no idea.
Saban got tired of every year having to recruit his roster.
Yeah, it's a recruiting of your own roster. I don't know how any coach wants to coach college football. It seems miserable.
I think you can make the argument that this was his best coaching job. This was not his best team.
I think he said that. I think he was like, this was my most fun year because this team wasn't supposed to be the team.
And that's what he created. So don't be shocked if Alabama takes a step back.
So Ohio State, I think you're going to put in this.
I would agree with that.
Georgia.
I think Georgia. And
Bama.
I think you're going to put Bama in there because they're going to feel that way.
And then who? I don't know if you can name another.
Right, that should think champion. I think that there are going to be some Oregon fans that think that, but I don't think that they should. I think you're going to have Michigan fans that think that, but I don't think that they should, especially with everyone leaving there. As you go through, Texas fans are always going to feel that way. I don't necessarily think that they should, but I kind of understand it.
So largely you and I kind of agree that it might be only 3. And to be also honest on this, Ohio State can't win their big game, and now they're not doing it either. But there's only that's my point.
That's why he's on the hot seat now.
But this is my point. You didn't name Florida. You didn't name LSU. You didn't name Auburn. You didn't name You didn't name Oklahoma. These are all really good programs with the right coach. And we already have noise, as made up as it might be right now. There is noise about like, hey, Jetfish went to Florida and Florida sucks right now. Florida could be desperate. And like, I feel for any of the fans stuck in that. And guess what? Most of them are. Right. And that's the thing about the sport that sucks.
Right.
So hearing that from Rittenberg yesterday, it's got to be frustrating.
And just to say this before we go to break, I've been dumping on UW fan all day. Here is...
I don't feel like you have been dumping on UW fan. I feel like you're giving a perspective of how you view the program.
Right. Well, here's the thing that UW fans should be excited about, or maybe not excited about, but hopeful when it comes to Fish in Florida. Does he have a lot of ties over to Florida? 100%. But they've had issues with their NIL. I mean, they tried to get the Rashada kid, who was the #1 QB in his class. They promised him this big deal, NIL, all this. That all fell through. And now there's whispers around their NIL, them not having as much money as you would think. And so if that's the case, and I'm Fish, why would I leave UW, where in my area, in my neck of the woods, I'm recruiting against Oregon and USC, and I'm probably going to play second fiddle.
Well, you're recruiting against Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State now, too. You're in that profile.
If you're going all the way over there. But I'm talking about the West Coast kid, because that team is built largely of West Coast kids.
That's the underrated part about this conference realignment. Now that's Ohio State territory. Now that is Michigan territory. Those schools, you need to be gearing up to go Midwest and secure some of those big boys up front. And the same way, they're going to be looking to add whatever it is the West Coast is known for adding. Those schools are now in your territory, and you need to go to their territory.
Right, but again, you're going to find O-linemen who are good over here. But all of that I'm saying is that I think UW is in a better spot than Florida. I might not love the spot that UW's in. I might not say that, hey, they are going to consistently be a top 3 team in the Big Ten. Right? But I think that if I'm at UW, that's a better spot than being at Florida, unless it's leaving for personal reasons, which Oregon fan knows that all too well, and UW has watched that from afar.
And Jetfish went to that school, and what is Florida known for? Hotbed high school recruiting.
Right.
So it's not to say that he is leaving. It's interesting. Like, that's the feel, and I don't know how you don't watch Jetfish and kind of have that kind of, I don't know if I trust this guy fully kind of vibe. Coming up next, Caleb Williams. Not such a big deal to this guy. Next on The Fan.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
We'll talk about that. Could you take a punch in the face from this player? We'll dive into it as NBA players are continuing to hate each other more and more. A couple thoughts on the Vancouver Ford text line at 503-864-6326. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them for more information at vancouverford.com. LMAO. UW won't be sniffing the playoffs for a very long time. They will have to be competing the top 3 of the Big Ten to even be considered. That ain't happening, fellas. Another one. By most reports, UW's NIL collective, Montlake Futures, is a top 12 funded program in the country. The issue was that the previous staff didn't want to use it on high school players, but rather on the portal and retaining their roster. Last year, that strategy got them within 2 bad quarters of an undefeated national championship. Somebody else saying Washington also built on 6-year seniors. And Duck fan here, but Oregon has 7 players invited to the combine. Younger players left. UW has 13 players invited to it. So talent coming and going is certainly a big deal of this. And we'll see how committed Fish is. I hope for Husky fan, he's there longer than 3 years, but I don't have a lot of that confidence.
Well, look, the other thing, too, with Fish is he's shown that he can recruit. Look at what Arizona was before he got there, and he was a very meh hire, right? And he turned around whatever Sumlin wronged and the mistakes that Sumlin had made over there, and he made them into a winner, and he was able to go out and find Fafita. Fafita completely changed that program and how it worked, and he was able to recruit great wide receivers over there, McMillan the latest. So there are still a lot of things to be positive about for UW fans. This year, I think you have to go into it saying, hey, if we become bowl eligible, 7, maybe 8 wins, that's a victory for us this year because we got absolutely gutted.
Yeah.
But if in 3 years you're looking at it and Fish has turned that program into, hey, they're for sure going to go into the playoff, they possibly have a chance at winning the Big Ten championship, I'm not going to be surprised.
Do you think it's going to be this crazy next year in the coaching carousel? I know we don't have a Nick Saban leaving or a Harbaugh leaving, but I can see a world where Ohio State, as loaded as they are, doesn't reach the goal. Yeah. I would imagine that job's going to become open because they're already, it feels like he's already on the hot seat, which is nuts, but they spent $13 million on what they currently have coming back. Mm-hmm. We'll see where LSU and Brian Kelly are, but if he has another year of not making a playoff, especially in the expanded season, that's going to be questionable.
If he
Florida.
Yeah, but all Kelly has to do is fix the defense. That offense was good enough to be a playoff offense. When you look at Florida, I don't think that they are going to do much of anything. I don't trust.
You don't think they'll move on? Or you don't think the team's going to be good?
I don't think the team will be good.
Oh, they
for sure think they'll move on.
Yeah, no, Will, they have one of, if not the toughest schedule in America.
And
it's nuts.
Once Urban left, they don't recruit at the same level.
No.
It really does take a special coach, but that's also why when you get a special coach, they leave so fast because someone's willing to pay them much more money.
I kind of wonder how many other programs aren't thinking about it now, but panic. Will Miami panic if Cristobal lets down this year? This is going to be the 3rd season. This is when you should, with portal stuff, this isn't 1998. Give the coach 4 to 5. Right. High school recruiting is important. The portal should bridge gaps in spots that you need players immediately. Be weird if he had kind of a mediocre 7-5 year. Mm-hmm. How about Dabo and Clemson? I don't think they'd fire him. But I could also see a world where he's tired of hearing from Tyler and Spartanburg, and he's like, "The hell with this! I'm done.
I'm out of here."
There's things looming and jobs potentially opening. I have wondered if next year's going to be as insane as
Oklahoma,
this year was.
I think if they have another letdown year,
they were okay this year.
Yeah, but they weren't.
No Big 12 title game.
Oklahoma is expected to be.
Well,
and
now they're in the SEC.
Your rivalry,
now they're in the SEC,
right? And what they've done over there since Riley has left really hasn't been all that impressive. And Venables is supposed to be this great defensive coach, and their defense was not fantastic. And it's the reason they weren't that good in his first year, and it's the reason they didn't make a championship game this year.
It's constantly, it can become tiring to have to play this game what's the landscape gonna look like?
Right. And
how
then-
many jobs are better than my coach's current
And
job?
the craziest thing is it really is, will a 21 to 23-year-old kid figure it out? Or 18-year-old to 23-year-old
Yes.
kid figure it out?
How reliant you are on those ages
Right.
of people. Yeah.
Because if you have, think about it this way, hitting home here for Duck fans. If you have Auburn Bo Nix, that's a much different player than Oregon Bo Nix.
Sure.
And if you have Auburn Bo Nix and he plays that way his entire career, you're looking at an average quarterback. If you get Oregon Bo Nix, specifically Coach Stein Bo Nix, well, you have a Heisman candidate that could possibly lead your team and did lead your team to a Pac-12 championship, or if you're at a difference, if you're at like an Oklahoma or
Sure.
something, leads you to an SEC championship. So it all depends at times on, do you get the right player to figure it out in the right moment, or you get the one special kid who comes in at 18 and is already a grown effing man and dominates?
Here's another job I didn't even think about till right now as you were talking about Bo Nix. By the way, let's give Kenny Dillingham the flowers here. He's the one that kind of brought him to Oregon, got the confidence,
Right.
and then Will Stein just carries it over.
He took it to the next level. Right. Fair.
Another job, and I can't believe we have to say this, but you just don't know anymore. Marcus Freeman doesn't get to the playoff with Notre Dame.
Yes.
Notre Dame.
A big case of the suppostas. Big case.
A massive case of the suppostas, but too much history for them not to have the suppostas. And so because they operate the way they do, this big independent that's pseudo ACC,
Right.
people could go, oh, year 3, we didn't even make the playoff. We weren't even top 12. I don't know about this Freeman guy. Might not be the answer to Brian Kelly.
He lost to Marshall.
Yeah, at home. Got drubbed.
not that good.
I watched that game. I
Should
watched
have lost to
Marshall.
Duke.
Yes. And
Had
then
10 men on the field against Ohio State.
twice. They had it twice. He had to call timeout. They came out of the timeout, still came back with 10.
Cost him the game.
So it's, there's just the movement around that sport's dumb. I
mean,
hate it.
WSU. If your coach does well, he could leave. If your coach sucks, you could fire him.
I hope Dickerts, he could have left probably. I hope he stays there for their sake. All right, we didn't get to it there. Caleb Williams. This guy's got a good track record, and he's not sold on him. Let's hear that audio coming up next, but first, Will with a sports update.
Now,
I want to get to this. Merrill Hodge, formerly of ESPN, the big Windsor Knot tie guy. Merrill Hodge, all about that business. I'll say this. I don't know how people feel about Merrill Hodge. I know he hasn't been on our TVs in a while. I actually used to be a huge Merrill Hodge guy, and I could see like the pretentiousness of the tie and kind of the attitude is just so dead serious, not really jokey. But man, were his evaluations when he would give some on quarterbacks, it's not that he never missed. It's that sometimes on, really polarizing quarterbacks, he'd come and be like, nah, that guy's not good.
He's a smart guy.
He's very smart. He understands the game. He was on Press Row, Radio Row this week going into the Super Bowl. And he had this to say. He was asked about Caleb Williams. And he watches film. He breaks this stuff down. Here was Merrill Hodge on NBC Chicago, who has the number one pick, Chicago does, on Caleb Williams.
Well, I've only watched Caleb Williams 3 games last year, 3 this year, so I'm only halfway done, okay? The one thing that is clear, he is not special. He is not something unique like a Patrick Mahomes, and I hope the Bears don't think, well, let's try to make up for our mistake when we pass up Patrick Mahomes and go get the Patrick Mahomes. The kid is not Patrick Mahomes. Ain't even remotely close to that. So it is unfair to Justin Fields. He has had new coordinator. There's no possible way you can know about your guy when you do that. It's the worst thing that can happen to any player, especially a quarterback. Now, when Justin came out, the one thing that I thought he had just inexperience. He just needed more experience. He lacked that. But what I have seen in Justin Fields, from my evaluation, there's enough growth and hope there that I would not let him go because I see enough there.
So he would, Merrill Hodge, rather build with Fields, and he says Caleb Williams is not special. I got to admit,
Bold take, Bob.
a little surprised by it. Now, I think the tough thing is there's just the track record of drafting quarterbacks. Yeah, you got some ones that you can name, but you also have how many more that you can't, that you're just like bust. I don't know if DC is going to step in and give Chicago a sweetheart of a deal and say, you can't say no to this, and then we want the pick. We want to bring Caleb home. But it's surprising to hear somebody like Merrill Hodge, who I think knows football pretty well, studies it enough. He'll study some more game tape, and him to say out loud, Caleb's not special. I don't know, Will. I'm not claiming to be Mr. X's and O's. Merrill Hodge could run circles around my knowledge.
Right.
And I'm not even saying he's wrong. But, man, when I watched him, I didn't feel that way. Again, I don't know coverages. I don't understand the nuance of what's supposed to happen in plays. I don't know, even in USC's case, I didn't know how much was Caleb being improviser and moving around guy versus offensive line leaking a little too much. Largely, I just watched Caleb and said, damn, this dude is special. And I would take him in a second. And then Merrill Hodge is like, not really.
What I felt like when I watched Caleb Williams is he bolstered that team. There's a reason that USC started the season in the top 10, and it's a lot of overvaluing some of their players just because they are USC guys, right? Like, oh, that kid's at USC, he must be a 4-star. He must be a 5-star. That wasn't a top 10 team, but they had a top 1 quarterback, right? And he was the best player, I feel like, in college football. Now, did he win the Heisman this year? No, of course not. He didn't have the numbers.
I don't know if we're ever going to see a back-to-back Heisman ever again. Voters did it once, and they're just like, Archie Griffin good, nobody else.
I don't think they'll allow it. It's the same thing with no one will ever win 3 MVP trophies in a row in the NBA because Michael didn't do it. Michael didn't do it. If Michael didn't do it, Jokic can't do it.
Hell, they got a stance on Mike having 5. Like, nobody else is worthy of 5. It's like,
okay, well, if he's the best player and most valuable player, don't you think he should win? But anyways, I digress. The issue with evaluating quarterbacks, when you look, and I think the number it's in the top 10, not even first-round quarterbacks, top 10 quarterbacks, it's a 50-50 hit rate.
Yeah.
And Merrill Hodge is very smart, right? Like, he has some picks in there where right away he saw Johnny Manziel and he goes, I would not touch that dude. I would not draft him. And he's had other quarterbacks where he said, hey, I think that guy's a QB. I think he'll be successful, that have blown up.
I believe he really liked Patrick Mahomes.
I believe you are
when,
correct.
When he was coming into the draft, he was one of the people like, Patrick Mahomes is a dude.
I think he's the one that hit on that because Patrick was not thought of as highly as most people. Like when he got drafted, everyone was thinking it was Trubisky and Watson.
Yeah,
and
that was a reach. Somewhere were like, this is a reach. Kansas City traded up.
Everyone was shocked.
There was a video that got circulated with their former GM, John Dorsey, and he ended up getting fired like 3 months after they drafted Mahomes. But he's doing this press conference, and he's like, this is the kid. We believe. I'm telling you, I disagree with the takes, and this is the guy.
Right.
And then they circle it, and they cut to the media types, and they're all like, Chris Carter, the only one that's going to win a Super Bowl in this group is Watson. That's the only one. And then they go to another media guy. This guy's not good enough. This guy, really? There was a guy that broke down his college film. Was like, his footwork's too sloppy. He's too loose. He turns the ball over. You can't trust him in decision making. Like, he has been wrong like 5 different ways.
Right.
So that was, a little bit of a bold take on Patrick Mahomes.
But to be fair about that, Merrill Hodge's endorsement of Patrick Mahomes isn't why Patrick Mahomes was good, because a lot of the people that went after Mahomes and said, hey, he can't read a defense. He is playing backyard football. This are the things that he's doing. When you listen to Patrick Mahomes in interviews, he specifically thanks Alex Smith for teaching him how to read a defense. He didn't know how to ID the mic. Sprague, in football, if you cannot ID the mic, you cannot set your protection. If you cannot ID the mic, you cannot identify what coverage the other team is. He couldn't do it when he got into the NFL. Most people are able to do that right away. We talked about it in the first segment. He was just that good of an athlete. He didn't have to learn that. And so Merrill Hodge could have said all these great things about Patrick Mahomes and thinking that he'd be successful. Well, if Pat doesn't go and get taught by Andy Reid and doesn't learn from Alex Smith, a true pros pro, a guy who had to learn all these things like where's the mic? How do I set my protection? If I want to call a hot route, what hot route should I call against this defense? Is it zone? Is it man? How do I figure these things out? Because if Alex Smith doesn't figure that out, Alex Smith doesn't play in the NFL. And then
he almost didn't. He kept going from coordinator to coordinator, and Harbaugh comes and like, oh, that guy's not any good, and boom, NFC title game.
Right. And then to be gracious enough to have a quarterback that's willing to teach him, because multiple quarterbacks have been out about we're not willing to teach that person. So when Merrill Hodge says, hey, I'm out on Caleb Williams, when I look at Caleb Williams, I go, that dude has special athleticism. Now, I'm not watching the All-22. I'm not in the meetings. I don't know if he has some of the same issues as Patrick Mahomes. So he has to be athletically special. And when he goes in and he plays against NFL defenses, will he be able to continue that way? We saw it with Vince Young. Vince Young didn't learn how to do the pre-snap stuff. Vince Young was out of the league fast. So that's something that could happen with Caleb Williams. But to me, when I look at Caleb Williams, look at his ceiling. His ceiling is on par with the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now, a guy that some people are already making GOAT conversations with. People are saying Patrick Mahomes could get to Brady, right? So if his ceiling is that, why would I not take him? Or if I am going to move on.
Yeah, but here's the thing. We don't know if that's the ceiling. That's the ceiling we ourselves say, oh, he's improvising. Look at this throw. Right. It's a sidearm.
Right.
We don't know anybody else that did it. Vince Young, to your point, I don't know where people were at with Vince Young in that draft. But this is kind of the thing with Caleb that sucks, Will, is you're dependent on your environment.
100%.
Vince Young went to 7-9 bowl. Jeff Fisher, I think he won Rookie of the Year, and then never did anything the next couple years, and just like that, out of league. Now he probably had off the field things as well, but some of this it's a part of the equation. Caleb has been living in this world of constant gratification and fawning over, and I'm not saying he's not tested for it. Some would point to this season and say, look how he handled it. But he's going to Chicago. The thing about Chicago that's interesting is they kept Eberflus.
That dude's a dweeb.
I kind of tend to agree. I don't think he's the guy. So is he going to thrive despite his circumstance? Chicago's never had a truly elite quarterback. Their best quarterback, just by a talent measure, is Jay Cutler.
Right. And he was smoking cigs.
They've never had a 4,000-yard passer. Ever. They've been one of the most embarrassing franchises in pro sports.
Right.
And I think he's good, but is he going to go there and succeed despite the circumstance? That's the tough thing. Merrill Hodge might be right, but I don't know if he's right because of the evaluation or if he's going to be right because of the circumstance and the team.
Right.
And I think that's the hard thing to project.
And I completely agree with you there because, and the points I made about Mahomes. Merrill Hodge was right that he had the highest ceiling and he could be successful, but he was successful because of outside factors as well as his own work ethic. I think you can make the argument Vince Young was unsuccessful because he loved buffets too much, right? Like he had his own choices. He didn't work out.
I want to see he had like a little bit of a drinking thing.
Yeah, he got fat. I know he wasn't on the perp drink like Jamarcus Russell was, but sometimes when you look at it too, his potential is so high, but there's the outside circumstances. But if the outside circumstances are what they are in Chicago, and it's probably the worst place to go if you're a quarterback, does that then mean Drake May would be successful there? Does that then mean Jaden Daniels? Like, so to me, if you're Chicago, you have to take Caleb Williams. This is a dude who has the potential to reach this number. People are talking about him on par with being a prospect like a John Elway, like an Andrew
He's
Luck,
a franchise guy.
like a Trevor Lawrence.
Minds, yes.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that guy. And if that guy doesn't hit, then that guy doesn't hit and we're all wrong except for Merrill Hodge. But if you take Drake May or you take Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix or Bo Nick, like whoever, JJ McCarthy, whoever, throw any quarterback in there and you take that person and they don't hit, but Caleb hits in Washington or he hits
or New England
in New England.
Yep. God, could you imagine if somehow he got to New England,
Right.
you're like, oh, cool. And he became Caleb, like the Caleb you and I think
Right.
is going to be, and he goes to New England. It's like, awesome. I'm glad they got another franchise guy.
Right.
Chicago and DC, they don't need one. When's the last time DC had one?
Guess
Kirk Cousins, RG3.
RG3 for a year.
Jason Campbell.
The guy who got his leg shattered by LT.
It's
Theismann?
Merrill Hodge, not a fan of Caleb Williams. A little surprised to hear him classify it the way that he did. We'll see what Chicago is going to do. Coming up next, could you take a hit from this guy? NBA players fighting in the tunnel. Next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Both went the opposite way of each other. And we'll get into that. Reagan Beers, Oregon State women's basketball player, forward for the Beavs. They got big games against UCLA and USC. We got a Juju Watkins coming to town this weekend. And so those are two massive games. Oregon State, number 11, red hot right now. Just had their first top 5 road win ever in program history. She will join us at 8:30. I want to get to this. So yesterday, before the game, Detroit and Phoenix played. Isaiah Stewart, also known as Beef, for some reason, him and
nickname.
yeah, I know, Beef.
Beef.
Well, this is a Pac-12 fight. We had a former Husky and a former Beaver got into a verbal altercation with the Shack of Troutdale, Drew Eubanks in Phoenix. And according to Shams, they went face-to-face, words were exchanged, and Drew Eubanks describes it as a sucker punch, and Isaiah Stewart reportedly punched him in the mouth. Flat out punched him in the mouth. It had to be broken up. There was a follow-up to this. He was arrested and then charged and released. So we actually had an arrest here. Phoenix came out and basically said there's no room for this. Monty Williams didn't like that and said, why don't you wait until all the facts are out before we conclude what was what? And normally you see in the NBA the hold me back, bro.
I was gonna say, did Monty Williams hit him with the look? There's good people on both sides.
He kind of did. There's a little bit of like, well, what did Drew say? And Beef Stewart punching Drew Eubanks right in the face, in the mouth, and was arrested for it. This is NBA beef taken to another level because again, usually it's hold me back, bro. Push. Oh, and then wait for my teammates to hold me back as if I'm going to punch you. No, Isaiah Stewart got into a verbal altercation, and Will said, no, Drew. Bam, clocked him right in the mouth.
What the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap.
Are we going to see a fat lip from Drew Eubanks now?
No, and the other thing with Drew Eubanks there is, if he sucker punches you, you got to punch him back.
Well, I think he got punched and then it got broken up immediately because they reportedly started screaming at each other.
Well, then you got to listen to Charles Barkley. This is the ultimate. You got to swing first.
You got to be the first swing.
Like if you're gonna go into it, it kind of sounds like Drew Eubanks was like, "Hey, hold me back," and Isaiah Stewart was like, "No, I'm not hold back. I'm on business." Because this is the same guy who chased through everyone to try and get to LeBron, correct? Stewart?
Yes.
Yeah, this dude is about it. He wants to fight.
He's a hothead. Yeah, this goes back to his Husky days. This guy, he doesn't mess around. I know Eubanks is really tall. I think Beef Stewart outweighs him by 30 to 40 pounds too.
Oh, for sure. Well, and then also, look, sometimes the matter guy wins, and sometimes the matter guy wins in most fights. Then you add on the fact that he is bigger. He's gonna beat up Drew Eubanks, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do love that. Like after Drew Eubanks gets hit, and I've seen this a bunch of times because unfortunately football players like to fight, especially drunk college football players. And so it's a lot of, well, he sucker punched me. That's the only reason I fell. That's the only reason I lost. He sucker punched me. It's like, dude, just fight back.
I'm trying to see.
Or don't fight.
Let's see. Because you know what's funny is there's another Phoenix Sun center who used to be a Trailblazer. They have 2 Trailblazer centers that are in altercations right now. Eubanks getting punched in the face by Isaiah Beef Stewart. The other one is Yusuf Nurkic is currently in a Twitter battle and podcast battle with Draymond Green. They also have a beef.
See, that's what Drew Eubanks should have done. He should have done the Yusuf Nurkic route and just gone to the Twitter fingers.
Well, I think he wanted to. I didn't think he was actually going to. I think he thought they were just exchanging words. And then he's kind of hold me back, bro.
Right.
But Isaiah Stewart wasn't having it, punched him square in the mouth.
Look, not to be, oh, yeah, we need more fighting. Guys are soft nowadays. But sometimes it's nice. You need a crazy guy on your team. Sometimes you need a crazy guy. Now,
I don't know if that's doing Detroit a lot of service this year.
That's what I was going to say. Now, maybe Stewart isn't the right crazy guy, but when Golden State was at their best, Draymond Green, he was a little bit crazy. When the Pistons were at their best, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, Dennis Rodman, little bit of crazy.
Ben Wallace,
right?
Absolutely nuts.
When the Blazers were at their best, you had some crazy guys on that team. You had some angry guys. Rasheed Wallace, anybody? So look, sometimes when you have these big time teams, you have crazy people that are angry and want violence. And in NBA, it seems like a sport where there aren't a lot of guys that are built that way. It's a lot of, hey, man, how dare you disrespect me? I'm getting in your face.
Most of them don't want to fight and don't know how to fight. They've been basketball players their whole lives, so they're bigger than everybody. Right. But when push comes to shove, literally they wait for somebody to hold them back. Yesterday in the tunnel, not the case. Stewart sucker punching Drew Eubanks, shout out Troutdale, and he was arrested, released. We'll see where this goes. But both sides pissed off at each other. Kevin Durant saying this shouldn't happen. Monty Williams saying, stop just accusing my guy of being the guy in the wrong here.
Right.
That's Crunch Time, brought to you on the Fan by Crunch Fitness, as low as $9.95 a month, $9.99 a month, excuse me. Multiple locations. Visit them online at crunch.com. Loaded final hour, and we kick it off with Ken Barkley. You better you bet. Next on the Fan.
Hey, it's Souk. And guys, for those
women's basketball. They're on fire right now. They got big games against the LA schools starting tomorrow and this week, and we'll talk with her. Kyle Shanahan responds to a Super Bowl loss with this, while Kansas City responds to a Super Bowl win with that. We'll get to that coming up. But our good friend Ken Barkley, you better you bet, one of our favorites, the BetQL Network, a good friend of the show, hops on. He's on Twitter at Lockie Lockerson. Ken, good morning. I don't have anything goofy to ask you. I just want to say, did the Super Bowl go about the way you expected?
Yeah, I think so. And good to talk to you, obviously, as well. We were obviously there in Las Vegas for the whole week leading up to the game, and I think probably had 100 people on actually 100 probably to talk about the game. Former players, people who bet, people who just like do content and just like betting, athletes from other sports. We had like Tim Howard on the set, the former U.S. goalkeeper. So like you ask all these people, you get this giant cross section of like America, and you ask them about the game, and the consensus opinion among like 99% was, like, hey, who do you like in the game? And this was true with me too. It's like, I don't know, like they're both really evenly matched. I think just like the Chiefs because of Mahomes in a close game. And then you watch the game play out and you're just like, hey, maybe the consensus is pretty smart. Maybe that's like actually, maybe that's kind of how it was supposed to go. I took a loss only because I had these crazy long shot bets on Chiefs that were not Mahomes to win Super Bowl MVP. And they were like really live in the third and fourth quarter of the game until he just totally, he went Mahomes on everybody. Kelsey was very live even at the end of the game. But I think it not only did it go the way I thought it would go, I kind of think it went the way like Earth thought it was going to go. And hopefully you were the same on that one.
Well, I'm a Niner fan, actually. So in my mind, Ken, like
this was a tough one.
Yeah,
this was a tough one.
Full honesty, like Friday, I was saying I was nervously confident, and I was only confident because I'm like, well, everybody and their mom's taking the Chiefs. I'm just going to hope that Shanahan and company have it figured out this time, a lesser offense this time. And well, Mahomes, I kind of was with everybody else on the thinking of it. Like it's Patrick Mahomes and all of these things are pretty close. I'll take the better quarterback. As you mentioned, it kind of gets parsed out that way. So the Chiefs win another title. I want to ask, immediately the game ends, maybe not like right after, but are there any AFC futures for you? Because everybody's going to pick them to three-peat. Kelsey's already talking about it. Reed's coming back. Are there futures for you? You jump on and you say, the odds of a team doing this in the NFL, I know they have Mahomes, but just the odds and the math say probably not happening. Are there futures in the AFC you take that kind of fade the Chiefs early?
Well, so I think a good way to think about this, like for people who just like love football, but maybe only bet games on Sundays, or like this time of year, you're not really you're not diving into football betting because the Super Bowl just ended. Just a good way to think about like the off season is if you're going to make a bet on something, the reason to bet it now, as opposed to like in August or September or even before the playoffs start next year, is you have to feel like the price is going to improve dramatically in your favor. So I'll just start by saying, like, I think the Chiefs could definitely win the Super Bowl again. They have the best player of all time. They have a coach who's won a lot. Their defense is exceptional. They're going to be able to keep most of the players on their team. And even if they can't, like, sell Patrick Mahomes, like that's a pretty good deal. I guess the problem is the Chiefs went off before the playoffs this year at like 11-1 to win the Super Bowl. And I think they're going on. I think they're like 6-7-1 right now trading in the market. It's pretty unlikely that that's going to improve in your favor, even if you bet it right now. So if you like the Chiefs, great. Like I like the Chiefs too. They're a really good team. Just a bad bet to make right now, probably. And I would say the same about San Francisco, who maybe can get back to the game again. Like poor Shanahan just ran into Brady and Mahomes for like his entire life. I can't imagine what that feels like. But like, okay, so those two teams can win, but like, why are you going to bet 5 when in September it's going to be 5-1? I'll give you a couple teams that I think are not going to be priced the way they are right now when we get to the start of the season. Well, I'll give you 3. The first one, and everyone's going to like this team, and the fact that everyone's going to like them means the price is going to be less, is going to be the Packers, who are 25-1, and it's because Jordan Love played really well in the playoff games. That's why everyone's going to like them. They are going to be built to win next year. They make all the sense in the world. The offense is all going to be back and all going to be a year older, which is good for them. And they'll still be able to keep a bunch of the defensive talent. And they finally got a new defensive coordinator. So they kind of fixed maybe what was wrong. And they're going off about 25-30-1 right now. That price might be less when you get to the start of the year. And then 2 AFC teams, to your question, I've already bet actually both of these to win the Super Bowl, and it's going to sound crazy when I say who they are, and they both play in the same division. I bet Cleveland to win the Super Bowl. They were about 50-1. And I bet Pittsburgh to win the Super Bowl, and they only because they are 100-1.
Wow.
And they are viewed as one of the least likely teams. They are viewed as likely as the Patriots to win the Super Bowl next year, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't know what everyone's thinking when that price exists. So again, market rates them fifth least likely, like 27th out of 32. They made the playoffs last year. They had a top 6 defense with a bunch of guys coming back. T.J. Watt, who's the best defensive player in the league, will obviously be back. Highsmith will be back from injury. They drafted Joey Porter Jr. a couple of years ago. He's awesome. All these guys are back. Totally new offense. Arthur Smith comes in to run the offense, which would be funny, except he's actually a really good offensive coordinator. He's just a terrible head coach. Like, he offensive coordinated one of the most efficient offenses of all time with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. And now there's like a ton of noise, and I make this bet, it's speculative, like they have to do something at quarterback. I think they're going to do something at quarterback. I think it's like very likely. So that can be trade for Fields. That can be trade for Cousins. That can be a lot of things. My bet on them is essentially that I think they're going to do that. And I think when they do that, it makes them really dangerous.
The only future I think I've picked so far, because I'm with you, I like to wait for a little more information. I took the Rams to win the NFC. The future's on the Rams. Yeah,
I actually think it's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know if they can be like a Super Bowl winner again, but like I guess they could be. I'll give you like an adjacent bet to that.
Yeah.
I try to talk to I am a part of a member of just like a combination of like nerds and freaks and like people that like to bet on awards way too early on stuff.
Yeah.
And offensive player of the year has already opened for next year. And talking to like a couple people that I would consider like pretty smart. I have not bet into this market at all, and I probably won't. 2 different people I talked to already bet Puka Nacua to win because he was 30-1 to win next year. And the idea is like in a McVay offense with Stafford, and if Kupp's on the way down, here's a number 1 receiver in like a McVay offense. It's 30-1. Obviously, we all saw the playoff game. He was awesome. So I can tell you, like, smart people, maybe they don't think the Rams can win the NFC, although they definitely could, but like are sort of buying the Rams as a good team next year.
I like that. I also think that he should have. I get it. Quarterback, Stroud, Texans, nobody picked him. I thought Stroud and Nacua should have split the Rookie of the Year on offense. I thought that would have been a good deal because.
And he got like no votes.
He got no votes.
Stroud got like 49 out of 50. Like 48 out of 50. It was almost like insulting that he didn't get. I didn't think he was going to win, but like, geez,
I know.
Like he broke the records at his position, and he plays a premium position. He didn't play quarterback, but Stroud missed games. Yeah, I was a little surprised that one wasn't closer, but. Like the allure of the quarterback is always just going to kind of win out in those situations.
Ken Barkley, You Better You Bet on the BetQL Network, the Odyssey app. You catch it every day when Nick Costos, him and Nick do one of the best shows. It's not just gambling. They do a great show in general. They're growing all throughout stations in America, and we're lucky to have them every Thursday here at 8. I'll pivot to the NBA because I remember you telling me going into the Super Bowl, I'm tired of football. And then we had the Super Bowl, and now we're after the Super Bowl, and I'm still talking about football. Let's pivot to basketball. You and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago about the MVP. And I was listening to a Windhorse pod yesterday, and Tim Bontemps of ESPN runs the straw poll, and this is the second MVP straw poll. And he said the last 2 years, the second place guy at this point has gone on to win the MVP. Right now, the second place guy is SGA of Oklahoma City, who's in this fight for the 1 seed. Now, I mentioned Kawhi is maybe a long shot odd. I liked it. I think he was 5th in this straw poll. Do you like SGA? Are you still leaning Jokic? He had a massive amount of first-place votes. Doncic had a couple. Like, there's really... It's SGA and kind of Jokic and everybody else. Are you looking at longer odds like a Giannis? Or do you like the idea of, hey, the second-place guy's been kind of hot in this. SGA is a good story. It's a really young team, and they might be the 1 seed in the West.
I haven't done a show in a couple days because we've been off this week. And so, I mean, you are like teeing me up for a 7-hour answer on that. I have like a lot to say. So I'll give you a really condensed version, sanitized for your audience. So I think this has a chance to get really weird, really fast. What I mean by that is the polling would tell you that Jokic is not just ahead, he's far ahead to win his 3rd in 4 years. and that SGA is second, and that there isn't really a candidate that's compelling behind them because nobody else really got more than a couple first-place votes. That's what the polling says, and the betting market is going to reflect the polling almost to a T because, like, why wouldn't it? Like, we literally are asking people who vote what they're going to vote for, and they're saying it, and the market price is going to reflect that. So those two things are working in tandem. The reason to make it, if you want to bet into this market, you basically have to believe that the people who are voting have a very low degree of confidence in what they're saying. So what I mean is, yeah, they say Jokic, but in 30 games when push comes to shove, are they going to say Jokic? And I am betting that the answer to that question is no. And I actually think he is one of the least likely players to win, which just sounds galaxy brain because he's ahead in everything right now. So first of all, literally in the week since that poll was taken, they got absolutely trucked by Milwaukee and they lost to Sacramento last night. They played brutal in both games. So like he had big stats against Milwaukee, but they were just getting like absolutely railroaded. And then he had bad stats last night and they blew a fourth quarter lead. So already since that poll, there's a ton of cracks in the armor. Like there's a lot going on here. There is also built into this award an incredible voter fatigue that I really think exists. And I think NBA voters love new things, new shiny objects more than they love the best player. They don't even, it's not even like who the best player is. The best player is Jokic. And the best player was Jokic last year too, by the way, and he didn't win. And I think the idea is like when they're presented with an opportunity to do something new, the voters will always seize that opportunity if a guy has already won, especially a couple. So you have candidates in the market, Giannis and Jokic, who are old. They have won twice. I think we are done with them. I do not think they are winning anymore. I think if voters are given something new and it's the end of the year, they're going to run and they're going to grab it. So that can be SGA. He's probably the most likely. He hasn't won before. He's like top 5 in voting last year, top 6. Stats are awesome. Can definitely be him. I would not, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I counted this guy out in the first couple months. I think there will be a giant push from Luka in the next couple months.
Really?
The team had more starters missing games due to injury by a factor of 10 than any of the other teams that have compelling candidates. So he played on a hurt team the whole year. He missed some games. They weren't very good. They won 6 in a row going into the All-Star break, including last night, and he's been excellent. If they finally like are healthy, which it seems like they are, and they traded Grant Williams, who apparently was like a cancer on the team, so that's good. They traded him for PJ Washington. If they really crush the next like month and a half, I think that's actually kind of likely with the health and kind of like the team composition. He is new, and everyone's kind of been waiting for him, and the numbers are great. I actually think he is by no means out of it. I would actually say like SGA and Luka combined, I actually think are a way better bet than Jokic right now.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything he said. I think what you said there, though, that's important. They've got to go on a run here. They're in the play-in right now. They missed the playoffs in the play-in last year. They're a game back of 6. They're also only a half game up from 8th. So what they do now with this post, Gafford and PJ Washington, if Kyrie continues to do what Kyrie's been doing, which is, he's been banged up here and there, but he's played good basketball, to your point, if they can make a surge, I'm still going to hold out hope. I know you don't buy it, and that's okay. I'm still going to hold out hope to what you're saying. The fatigue sets in, and I know he didn't play last night against the Warriors, but Kawhi's been awesome. And I think if the Clippers can make this push and capture a 1 seed, and his numbers are good enough, it's still a guy that I'd be willing to take a long shot on. Not saying he wins it, just looking for kind of the more value, I guess, in that conversation.
Sure, I'll give you a quick answer on Kawhi because I do think there is a path for him to win. I just think it's like extremely narrow.
I'm with
you.
So
I'll give you the pro on Kawhi in 10 seconds.
Yeah,
he has a chance to be the best player who's a 1 seed in his conference. It's the simplest case to make on earth. Like he has a chance to be the best player on a 1 seed, and everybody knows who he is. The con is they have a ton of back-to-backs in the second part of the season after the All-Star break, and I think they're going to do what they did last night. Which is, I think he's going to sit a bunch because, like, they can actually win the. I don't think they're going to win the title, but they can actually win the title this year, which is nuts. And if you're going to do that, like, he's not going to be all in to hit some like 75 game threshold that's like going to give him crazy numbers. Like SGA is going to try to hit that number probably. Luka already missed games. He has to play. They like have to win in order to make the playoffs. So like I think Kawhi's just at a natural disadvantage. He could play in those games, like if he's in it maybe, but I think you're kind of behind the 8 ball just in terms of like a player availability question.
Ken Barkley, you better you bet. You can hear him on the Odyssey app and radio stations nationwide. BetQL Network with Nick Costos. Hey Ken, thanks for hopping on. I know you're off this week. Thank you so much for hopping on with us this week, and great job. I caught almost every single interview. You mentioned 100. I caught almost all of them. You and Nick crushed it out there in Vegas. I know you're exhausted, so go rest back up. Thanks for hopping on. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm in the middle of a week-long vacation, and you asked me about NBA MVP. I'm actually really happy I got all that off my chest.
There you go.
So
Hey.
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Ken Barkley on Twitter at Lockie Lockerson. Give him a follow. Him and Nick do a great job. Nick, a little more the loud in your face guy, and Ken more the reserved numbers, explaining and walking you through every step of the process. They make a good combo. Coming up next, the reaction to a Super Bowl by these two teams. Reagan Beers at the bottom of the hour. Dirt and Sprague back with more on The Fan.
We like threesomes.
Beavers are red hot right now, and they dropped both games in LA a couple weeks ago. They're looking for some revenge. Juju Watkins coming to Gill Coliseum. It's exciting. Ooh. We'll talk with Reagan Beers coming up forward for Oregon State. Quickly, though, so the Niners lose, the Chiefs win, and they respond with the Chiefs extending their DC, which is the underrated part of their team building. Ken mentioned it there. They definitely can three-peat, and it's not just because of Mahomes. That team was led by defense this year. This was the worst offense of Mahomes' career in Kansas City. And yeah, he threw their game-winning pass. The Chiefs' defense was lights out for them, and they're keeping their DC. The Niners respond by firing Steve Wilks after just one season. And by the way, one day, Will, after he had said, yeah, everyone's coming back.
Right. And a defensive coordinator who, well, you took a step back in certain areas.
Oh, yeah.
You were third in the NFL in points allowed.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
They had a good showing in that Super Bowl, too.
Yes. And you had issues. And here's the thing. You had issues, but you always seem to right the ship. And probably, I'm not going to say your best defensive player, but maybe your most valuable defensive player in Hufanga. That safety, the amount of different positions that he can play and the different ways that you can use him. You can use him as a cover guy. You can use him as a blitz guy. He wasn't in, and that hurt him a lot.
I think, there's a lot of talk today. Steve Wilks done dirty. Steve Wilks, Kyle Shanahan panicking. Kyle Shanahan. Look, Steve Wilks was fine. They have a certain defense they run in San Francisco and have for some time. So Wilks had to become quick with the system, and he struggled with it. Kyle Shanahan's been winning for how many years now? And I know he's won the big game, quote unquote, but I'm going to trust Kyle Shanahan to do what he thinks is best for his team. Very quick segment. Let's go. Reagan Beers, forward for Oregon State. She's coming up next. But first, Will with the sports update. 1080 The Fan. I'm really excited. We talked with Ken Barkley at 8. I'm really excited for our guest at 8:30 because, Will, we're not just talking to anyone here. I'm talking to the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, the 6th Player of the Year, the now four-time Pac-12 Player of the Week, the 4th highest scorer in the Pac-12 currently, Reagan Beers of your Oregon State women's basketball, red hot right now. Reagan, good morning. Congratulations on the huge win in your home state. How you doing?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you on the congratulations. It was a great win at Colorado.
When did you find out you were Pac-12 Player of the Week?
I found out on Monday during a different radio interview, actually. I didn't know, and then he told me that I had won twice, and I was like, I think I only won once this year. And then he told me that I had won this week. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
It must be nice, Reagan. You've won this 4 times. You won it twice as a freshman. Now you've won it twice this year. Like, it's got to be nice to win it that many and not be able to keep track of it.
Yeah, it's a cool award, but what's nice about those awards is that most of the time I'm just doing what I'm told and I'm running the play right, and that doesn't really take too much. So the thing about those awards is that they're all team awards, in our opinion, and whenever we get those as a team, it's all just – it took 5 people to get there. And so it's cool that I won Pac-12 Player of the Week, but really – that award goes to my team, I think.
Well, you're from Colorado, and I know you had a lot of support in the building, and you were pretty amped at the end. But getting the program, help getting the program's first ever road top 5 win, it has to feel great, but it has to feel just a sliver more special to be able to do it coming back home in front of family and friends, right?
Yes, 100%. It felt so special to get that top 5 road win at Colorado in front of so many people that I have grown up with and that I love so much. So it was truly an amazing experience.
You know, from November 6th, to January 4th, you guys hadn't lost a game. And when I looked up the preseason top 25, I wanted to refresh my brain of like, okay, what did people think? I didn't see on the AP. I didn't see your team on the coaches poll. Not even a receiving votes category. Oregon State was not in any of that. So not a team much gave a look at. When did you and your teammates know this was different? This was special. Following the way the year ended last year, when did you guys know this is different? And people might not know it now yet, but we know it.
Mm-hmm. I would say after the last season ended, after the Pac-12 tournament, we had that little break. We all came back and we started working out. And once we got our whole team, and we went on a trip to Italy this past summer, we got our whole team and we were all playing. And that first game in Italy was truly something special because that was the point that I knew that this team was going to be something this year. Whether people knew it or not, this team was going to be something. And sure enough, we're showing that as we get deeper into Pac-12 season. Yeah,
forward for Oregon State women's basketball, Reagan Beers is our guest here. They got a big set of games this weekend. I'll be at the Friday one with UCLA, and then USC comes to town. I've never interviewed you before, but you were a 5-star player, McDonald's All-American. Just out of curiosity, what was it about Oregon State and Scott Rueck for you where you didn't even question it? You're straight committing. You've had a great career so far. What was it about Scott Rueck and Oregon State?
I know this might sound like a broken record, but the culture of this team is truly unbelievable. Obviously, the Pac-12 is such a unique conference, and I wanted to come play in a Power 5 conference at the Pac-12, and so that was obviously super important. And so, but the culture at Oregon State is just unlike any other. And so when I took my unofficial and then my official visit here, I knew this is something that I wanted to be a part of and in a team I wanted to be on.
I know you guys had great players coming back from last year's team. As you mentioned, you lose the Pac-12 tournament, and then you come back, you reset, you examine, you say, okay, we feel good. But I'm curious how big it was to get somebody like a Kelsey Reese to come out of the portal and transfer in. It's a weird world now, Reagan, where there's experience on these teams, but now the portal allows, adding pieces here and there that fit. How was it that she found her way to Oregon State, and how big that's been for you guys?
It's been huge. I mean, you've been seeing it. People that have watched her games have been seeing it, how much of an impact that she has had. I mean, obviously her height is helpful, but she is just so wise. And because she has been in the Pac-12 this is now her 4th year, I believe, because she has been through it so many times and on a team that has won so many times, she knows what it takes to win. And so Coach is constantly looking at her because nobody else on our team really knows what it means to truly win like Kelsey has. I mean, she's a Pac-12 champion, and so just looking to her for that kind of knowledge and that drive, it's just been super helpful this year. And then, of course, we got Sela, one other transfer, who's just been helpful going against that height and practice. She just continues to get better every single day. And so it's just been exciting to see all of our transfers and freshmen kind of learn our way and step up and do well.
I think people that have been following Reagan about your team is you guys are really good inside and out. I mean, not only you guys down low, but outside you got good guard play. Talia von Oelhoffen now has been there. How has she grown as a leader since you've gotten to Corvallis? How has she grown as a leader?
We have amazing guard play, and it just continues to show as our guards continue to knock down shots as we go on the road. But Talia has grown so much as a player from last year to this year, and everybody has seen it. I mean, if you watched even one of Talia's games last year, you watch her this year, and she has improved so much. I mean, defense, I feel like this year she's taking defense more personally, and you can see that. You can see her effort just overall increase, and that has helped our team so much as now we kind of see her as the leader and the anchor of our defense, and she's the person that we kind of feed off of. And so that has been super helpful and super great on our team as we need that when we go against these really good teams to have great offensive threats.
Reagan Beers is our guest forward for Oregon State. Red Hot and UCLA, USC are coming to town. Women's basketball growing at just an insane level right now. There's college games, Reagan, they're getting more eyeballs than NBA games. So everybody's in on the product. I'm curious, when you're not playing and you're not doing pottery in your off day, who is the player that you see highlights or you sit down and watch that amazes you outside of your own team, your own bubble? Who are players or a player that you watch or you make sure to watch when you got some time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I always love watching Aaliyah Boston play just because I feel like I can resonate with her in a way. And so just the way she played in college and so I just like to watch clips of her. But then obviously I love watching Caitlin Clark. I mean, who doesn't? That girl, I know I'm not a guard, but if I was a guard, I would aspire to be Caitlin Clark. And I mean, she just watching clips of her is like watching an NBA guy just shoot and rain threes all day. And so she's so entertaining to watch on my off day when I'm not doing pottery or basketball. So
I saw that Nebraska, when they pulled the upset, she was going for the record. Nebraska pulls the upset on Iowa, and one of the players hit her with her own "You Can't See Me." If Reagan Beers is down low, hits a turnaround jump hook, Oregon State goes up, not enough time, beats Caitlin Clark. Are you hitting her with her own celebration the way other players do, or are you just running down the other end of the court and waiting for that horn to sound?
I don't think I would do that. I mean, maybe I would say I would, but I would never do that to somebody else. I just don't think I'm not really that kind of player. I'd rather just go focus on defense because I know I need to focus on defense. I need to mentally lock in for that. And so I just, if I do score, I'm running back down and I am going to lock down or try to lock down whoever I'm defending and ignore the play that just happened because it's over. So it's moved on and now it's time to get a stop. So my mind kind of switches really fast because obviously in this game it needs to when the teams are as good as they are.
I'll be down there Friday. My daughter's pretty excited to see you guys play because the season's been so special and you guys are, again, really inside-outside game is amazing. It reminds, I think, a lot of Oregon State fans of teams in the past. I'll be down there Friday for UCLA. You're trying to get revenge against these LA schools. I'm kind of curious, two-parter for you. You don't want to lose a game, but how much, because you guys haven't lost a whole lot, how much losing does in weird ways help you fix whatever weaknesses you might have or address areas that you can improve on? And what were they able to do, both UCLA and USC, that many other teams haven't been able to do so far?
Yeah. You're right. They do address weaknesses, and we had some weaknesses that were definitely addressed when we played them that first time in LA. And so we've been talking about it a lot this week, but they backcut on us a lot, and they took us to the middle too many times. They drove on us, and they got past us. We lost our positioning too many times when we played them that game, and then it caused some help rotations that just weren't effective. And so this week it's just been a really hard focus on not letting them go past us. And obviously what killed us when we played them both was rebounding. Because of our position defense, coach always says that our rebounding needs to be fantastic. And so this week we have really been focusing on that because they are two of the best rebounding teams, in my opinion, in the Pac-12. And so we've been really focusing on that because they exposed that weakness the first time, and we don't want a repeat of that this weekend. So
Reagan Beers forward, Oregon State women's basketball, getting ready for UCLA and USC. Reading about your background coming from Colorado to Oregon State, it's funny to read the stories because I think everybody or a lot of people that played sports, they have stories they could share similar. You grew up with brothers, so you're playing basketball against brothers, and I love how you acknowledge, like, they're a little bigger than me. They bully me around still. Most gnarly injury you ever suffered playing basketball in the driveway against your brothers?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I remember a specific one, but there were times where we would eat, all of us probably took turns skidding across the concrete in the cul-de-sac, that we would get like the most hurtful cuts on our legs or the most worst burns that just burned in the shower so bad. I can't remember a specific one, but there were ones we would, I don't know, push each other to the ground, and then we would get some gnarly scars from that concrete. So I can't remember a specific one, but that was a common occurrence, especially between my brothers when they would go at it.
Yeah, the cement burn ones they actually tend to hurt the most. Those are the ones because they linger. Yeah. Anytime water or soap gets on it, it's just, it's exposed. It hurts a lot. It toughens you up, though, and gets you ready for a career like this at Oregon State.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I'm coaching my daughter's 6th grade team. This is my 2nd year coaching. I'm not the smartest coach in the world, but I want people to participate in team sports. I think it's a really big thing, and I want my kid doing it. So I'm coaching my daughter's team. They're 6th graders, and not all of them really play. Basketball is like not their number one sport. Do you got any tips for me? We're 2-1 right now. We got a massive game this weekend ourselves. Any tips for coaching 6th grade girls basketball?
Oh, I mean, back when my dad was coaching me, he just reminded me that it was a game and it's supposed to be fun. I mean, especially at that age when they're all in 6th grade, most of the time they are just there to have fun, but you also want them to be competitive. So I would say that's my best advice, just to remind them that you're here to have fun because it is a game. Because that was the best thing my dad did for our team when he was coaching us, especially when we would get over competitive and just get so frustrated. He just remind us that, hey, we're here to have fun. We're here to have fun. And then that would kind of just clear our minds, then we would actually end up playing better. So I don't know if that'll be effective on your daughter's 6th grade girls team, but I say give it a try. Maybe we'll see.
No, it's definitely a big thing. I tell them to go out there and have fun, and then I tell them, like, I know it sounds ridiculous. I don't care about missed shots. Just shoot the ball. Like, stop caring if you miss the shot. Just go out there and have fun and play basketball. I'll get you out here on this one, Reagan. What makes, just out of curiosity, I don't want to single just one player out, but I am. What makes Juju Watkins special? I know you've only played her the once, but what did you see from her when you played her?
Yeah, that's a great question. Juju is a really great player. And the thing about Juju is that usually when you're scouting somebody, you kind of can play their tendencies a little bit, or maybe force them into something that they're not comfortable with. Maybe like force them into a pull-up instead, or maybe force them to shoot a 3 because they're not as comfortable there. And so you can kind of force them into something that maybe they're not as comfortable in. But the thing about Juju is that it doesn't seem like she's uncomfortable really anywhere. I mean, it seems like no matter where you kind of send her, she's going to do something that's effective and something that's kind of in her comfort zone. And so that she was hard to scout against last time. She's hard to scout against this time. I mean, good players always are. And so, but that's the amazing thing about Juju is that she's like that. So she's a great player, and we're excited to have that challenge on Sunday when she comes to Corvallis.
You guys did good defensively against her. I think she was at 33% for the game. As you mentioned, got to hit the glass. I'll be down there for Friday's game. Good luck to you, Reagan. Thanks so much for hopping on. Look forward to watching you Friday and hoping you guys can finish out the weekend by beating both LA schools. Congratulations, too. A great season for yourself. But as you mentioned, you guys as a team, a lot of fun to watch and a great story. Thanks for hopping on with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Go Beavs.
All right, there we go. Reagan Beers, forward for Oregon State women's basketball, on fire right now and looking to exact some revenge against the LA schools. I'm going down for Friday's game. I'm looking forward to it. Bought tickets last night. Me and the fam heading down early, maybe get a little local boys, catch that game, and see what Reagan Beers and company can do against UCLA. All right, we wrap it up next. Dirt and Sprague on the Fan. And women's hoops is great right now. There's so many great players, and UCLA beat Oregon State too. USC Oregon State was a close game, but USC's got the player. They got the juice and Juju Watkins. So big opportunity for Scott Rueck and company. Remember, the tournament's going to be in Portland this year. And I remember I went to it a few years back with my daughter when it was Anescu and Oregon. And who did they play? I think they played who were the Jackrabbits? South Dakota State?
Yeah, that's South Dakota State.
Yeah, they played them, and they ended up housing them. But that was a really good environment, a lot of fun. So we'll see what they can do this weekend against the LA schools. Quick reminder, our first Fan Winter Golf Classic at X Golf Tualatin and Vancouver, Tuesday, February 27th. The X Golf Tualatin round is sold out at 4 p.m. The noon round is filling up, though, fast, so you still have an option there. And you can also choose from either noon or 4 at X Golf Vancouver. Danny and Dusty are going to be in Vancouver. Isaac and Suk will be in Tualatin. The winning threesome will get a free foursome into the Fan Golf Classic, our 10th annual one this year, this summer. And the last place threesome will receive a free lesson out at X Golf. There's going to be food for the golfers from Victor Rico's, Pro Catering, the Urban Restaurant Group. All golfers are playing Pebble Beach on the simulators. You can go to 1080thefan.com for more info and to sign your threesome up now.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
You got a threesome?
I've always wanted one.
Dream threesome. Go.
Well, Tiger. You got to throw Tiger in there.
LT Gray. How do you not have Tiger in your threesome?
He has to be in your threesome.
Sunday Red.
Paige Spearneck.
Really? Is it Spearneck or Sporanic?
I've heard both.
Yeah, me too.
And that's a perfect time for her to correct me on how to say her name.
Okay.
She will be there to join me.
Do you think she's okay? Real quick, that's not.
I do follow her.
I think every red-blooded American
who's into golf at all,
that likes even a little bit of golf, is following Paige Sporanic. If you're in a threesome with her and Tiger, and I don't mean this disrespectfully,
oh no, I'm not.
Is she even looking and talking to you? Or is Tiger just stepping in going, come on, well move over?
I think that Tiger is stepping in. My hope is that I'm bigger than him, and then I can do your time was then, old man. My time is now.
Ah, yes. His resume's deeper, though.
Plus, but he's already met her. I
think Tiger's pretty big.
I'm the new flavor.
Yeah.
I'm the new flavor of the month.
I don't know if your flavor ever beats the old flavor of LT Gray.
I'm not saying that I beat him. I'm just saying that I think maybe there's an avenue that I can play.
Maybe
and then with my charisma.
Younger guy.
Younger dude.
Yeah, that's not going to make me sign an NDA.
Right.
Okay, all right. She probably makes you sign the NDA.
Right.
Whereas she